Good morning, church. I'm Lee. Let's go ahead and get caught up on everything that's going on here at Exeter BFC. As always, we like to start our service by just welcoming our first-time guests and visitors who are here this morning. If you haven't stopped by the welcome desk downstairs in our lower lobby, we'd love for you to make sure to do that before you leave church today. We'd like to connect with you, so if you don't mind, there's a card in the seat back in front of you that you can pull out and fill out manually on one side, or you can scan one of the QR codes on the other side of that, which takes you to our online version of the form. The other QR code on that card actually takes you to our e-bulletin, which we'll mention more later on. We've been talking about John Brynan's trip to Kenya for a few weeks now, and your opportunity to give and fund Bibles for the community there in Kenya, where he will be working. If you still haven't given and you're interested in giving to that, you can make sure to do that today, because we'd like for today to be the cutoff for that giving. You can find more information about that in our e-bulletin, or you can mark your offering envelope today specifically for Bibles for Kenya. Our first monthly family event for the year is happening next Sunday night, January 15th, and we couldn't be more excited to have a movie night here in our sanctuary. If you're interested in that, you don't need to sign up or anything, but we'd love for you to just attend. It's a full family event, so anybody is welcome to join us. We'll have some popcorn and water for those of you who will be here to watch the movie. That's Sunday night, 5 p.m. here in the sanctuary. We hope to see you there. One last thing is a quick reminder that now that we're in a new month, in the new year, our Sunday evening service is kicking off tonight for 2023. That's second and fourth Sundays of every month, although this month is slightly different. Jen's going to tell you about the upcoming fourth Sunday this month, but we would love to see you here for our first Sunday evening service of the year here at the church, 5 p.m.
If you have a donor number through the church for giving purposes, you can find your box of 2023 offering envelopes on the table in the main lobby today. Today is the last day that those will be available for pickup in the lobby. If you don't get a chance to get them today, you'll just need to reach out to us at the church office and set up a time to swing by the office and pick them up there. On Sunday, January 22nd at 5 p.m., we will be having our annual congregational meeting. This meeting will take the place of our normal Sunday evening service. It'll start at 5, and we'll just be going over all the end-of-year finances from 2022. We'll be going over budget numbers for 2023. During this meeting, the staff and the elders will be available to answer any questions you might have. So if you're available, come on out for that informational meeting. Also, at the congregational meeting, we hope to hand out new church directories. So we would ask everyone who has an account on Breeze, which is our online church directory, to take just a moment to log on and make sure all your information is current. Make sure you have a current photo for your profile picture. If you're newer to the church or you don't have a login info for Breeze, please reach out to us at the church office and we can get you all set up with that. Those are all the announcements we have for today. If you missed anything or you want to see all the additional announcements that we had in our e-bulletin this week, you can visit www.exeterbfc.org/bulletins and view it there, and also sign up to receive it on a weekly basis. At this time, you can stand and greet your neighbor.
Good morning once again. I hope you all are ready to join us as we sing and worship to our Lord and Savior. We're going to start with Waymaker. And I don't know about you, it's been a fun week of sickness for myself, but it's still a great opportunity to be able to gather here on a Sunday morning and lift our voice no matter how we sound, because we believe our Lord is worthy of it. So let's worship him together.
Touching every heart, I worship you, I worship you. You are here, healing every heart, I worship you, I worship you. You are here, turning lives around.
together, we have so much to be thankful for. Give him our gratitude.
All my words fall short. I've got nothing new. How could I express all my gratitude? I could sing these songs as I often do. Every song must end, and you never do. So I throw up my hands and praise you again and again. 'Cause all that I have is a hallelujah, hallelujah. And I know it's not much, and I've nothing else fit for a king, except for a heart singing hallelujah, hallelujah. I've got one response. I've just got one move. With my arms stretched wide, I will worship you. So I throw up my hands and praise you again and again. 'Cause all that I have is a hallelujah, hallelujah. And I know it's not much, but I've nothing else fit for a king, except for a heart singing hallelujah, hallelujah. Come on, my soul, oh, don't you get shy on me. Lift up your song, 'cause you've got a lion inside of those lungs. Get up and praise the Lord.
We'll sing that again. Come on.
Come on, my soul, oh, don't you get shy on me. Lift up your song, 'cause you've got a lion inside of those lungs. Get up and praise the Lord.
Come on, I need a little help this morning. Let's sing that again. Come on.
Come on, my soul, oh, don't you get shy on me. Lift up your song, 'cause you've got a lion inside of those lungs. Get up and praise the Lord.
One more time.
Come on, my soul, oh, don't you get shy on me. Lift up your song, 'cause you've got a lion inside of those lungs. Get up and praise the Lord. except for a heart singing hallelujah,
Amen. You may be seated as we move into our time of prayer and morning offering.
As the men come forward, let's have a prayer and ask God for help. God, please help us. Give us wisdom and understanding, and Lord, give us more than this. Help us see if there's any wicked way in us, and lead us unto your way everlasting, so that we may be better servants of you. And help Pastor Bill bring all of his hard work to completion here this morning, and grant him remembrance, and allow him to just speak boldly and proclaim your name. And Lord, how many of us here today are experiencing grief and sadness and anxiety and despair? Lord, what can we say except we must focus on the cross. We must focus on what was done there for us, and focus on you, the God of all comfort and the God of peace, who strengthens us and can lift us out of that pit of despair. And Father, as I think back over this past year and everything that was accomplished here at this church, I would ask not just that you would continue providing, but that you would provide and equip for us things that are beyond our wildest imaginations. Not for our sake, Lord, but for yours, so that we can proclaim your name in all of Exeter and everywhere. And as we give our offering and reflect on you, may we give with openness and give freely with a full heart, knowing that the one whom we're giving to is you, the creator and the sustainer of the entire universe. Lord, we thank you and we love you. May your will be done. In Jesus' name, amen.
As the offering plate passes, please feel free to stand and join us as we sing I Stand Amazed. Wonder how he could love
You may be seated. The kids, you can go ahead and be dismissed.
Good morning. Yeah, there's tends to be a lot of sickness going around, but I feel like that's been a common conversation for the last couple of years. Everybody's always sick. Thankfully, I'm not. Man, I get so excited to come up and preach. There's just times when it's like I'm anxious, and you get for anybody that's been coming here for any extended period of time, you've had things like the Chalcedonian Christology. We've had things like the kenosis and hypostatic union and Greek conjunctions and what's the difference between this Greek word, that Greek. We've had some deep stuff for sure, and that's important. Again, Jordan references it a lot when he gets to speak up here. That idea of simple profundity, that the Bible is very simple and insanely profound. And certainly as we've gone through, especially Ephesians and Philippians, there's some really deep stuff that you can't avoid. And today's is really incredibly simple and difficult, and it's very practical. And I think it is one of the most relevant messages for everybody in this room. I can't think of any human being that doesn't need this. And I definitely, in my personal experience as a Christian, have found this is probably one of the number one most lacking things in local churches and people's lives. And so with that lead, let's pray and get into God's word. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, again, I pray that today, Lord, with the work, the effort put in throughout not just this week, but Lord, my life as yours, Lord, that I would exegete your word properly, and I would draw out the text and focus on what is focused on here as well, present it properly, and Lord, may we apply it to our lives. Lord, again, I pray anything of me would be forgotten. In Jesus' name, amen. So today, you can open up your Bibles to Philippians. We're obviously still in Philippians. We're in chapter 2. And listen to this. We're going to be going verse 19 through 30, believe it or not. Sometimes we barely get through the first word in a sentence. And today, we're going to actually go through 11 verses. So let's read. Philippians 2, 19 through 30. Paul continues and he writes, "But I hope in the Lord Jesus to send Timothy to you shortly, so that I also may be encouraged when I learn of your condition. For I have no one else of kindred spirit who will genuinely be concerned for your welfare, for they all seek after their own interests, not those of Christ Jesus. But you know of his proven worth, that he served with me in the furtherance of the gospel like a child serving his father. Therefore I hope to send him immediately, as soon as I see how things go with me. And I trust in the Lord that I myself also shall be coming shortly. But I thought it necessary to send to you Epaphroditus, my brother and fellow worker and fellow soldier, who is also your messenger and minister to my need. Because he was longing for you all and was distressed because you had heard that he was sick, for indeed he was sick to the point of death. But God had mercy on him, and not on him only, but also on me, lest I should have sorrow upon sorrow. Therefore I have sent him all the more eagerly, in order that when you see him again you may rejoice, and I may be less concerned about you. Therefore receive him in the Lord with all joy, and hold men like him in high regard, because he came close to death for the work of Christ, risking his life to complete what was deficient in your service to me." Now, I don't know how many people would talk about you like that, how many individuals y'all hold in high regard. But today we're really going to focus on verse 21 mainly, as well as, of course, the individuals mentioned here. But verse 21 says, "For they all seek after their own interests, not those of Christ Jesus." So that's what we're focusing on today. Setting your life agendas towards Christ's interests and not your own, and finding role models in Christ who will lead you in that direction. And that is the thing that I find is so deeply lacking, is individuals leading other individuals. True discipleship. And so that's what we're going to talk about. And I wanted to start with what used to be a very common view for anybody that cared, and it was called a geocentric worldview, and that is that the entire universe revolved around the earth. Now, in our current day and age, in 2023, it's like, yeah, everybody knows that. Well, they didn't used to. And I guess there's still some people that would probably argue that. I mean, there's still people that believe the earth is flat. So you're never going to get 100% of anybody to agree on anything. But back then, right, the common person thought that the world revolved, or that everything that they could see revolved around earth. We're the center of the universe. And then they've actually got writings in like the 3rd and 5th century where there were individuals that started to say, no, that's not accurate. They measured different things at different sunlight and different geographic locations. Like, this doesn't seem right. But it never really got developed until the 1500s. And around that time, there's two individuals, Copernicus and Galileo, that really actually came up with theories as to how they believe that the earth is not the center of the universe, and that became a problem for them. They weren't killed for it. Copernicus died quickly after he wrote about it. But Galileo had to go before the Spanish Inquisition. I mean, there's all kinds of interesting history there, but the point is, at some point, it took a very long time for most in humankind to recognize that the earth is not the center of the universe, and especially our current solar system, that we revolve around the sun. And that's called a heliocentric viewpoint. And what I really want people to walk out with today is a heliocentric viewpoint, that you are not the center of the universe. The sun is. And your interest should be the sun's. You should focus on what Jesus Christ's interest is. However, just as it was insanely difficult to convince the world that the solar system didn't revolve around them, and most people honestly didn't care, and most people today don't care, the reality is, as we're going to focus on, our lives should be centered in Christ, and we should find others to emulate that that's the way that they live. Most people don't care. The reality is, most people don't care. But I do pray that today we walk away with a heliocentric viewpoint, that what we want to focus on is Jesus Christ. Again, not only is this incredibly difficult because it goes against everything inside of us, and again, I'm not even talking about non-believers, I'm talking about Christians that say they come to know the Lord and yet still continue daily in self-interest. It's, what's my day about? How am I going to develop my lifestyle? What's my trajectory? Do I have still the same dreams as when I was 5 years old, 10 years old, 20, 30, 40? Whatever it is, we set these goals, these destinations, and we head towards them. And very rarely do we ever actually involve the Lord in those decisions. And you can only look in the mirror and determine if that's true for yourself. But I'd really like to put it this way, because most people have an entire lifestyle that was built around self-interest, self-value, and someone else determining the trajectory of their life. And typically when you're on that, it's like a railroad track. I mean, it's really hard to get off of that track. If somebody your whole life was like, you're the greatest at this thing, and you just kind of ran with it, and maybe at 60 or 70 you turn around and you're like, is that really what I should have done with my life? In fact, I want to give some quick examples to really drive home what we're talking about here today. When I was in high school, now I went to a private school, my dad taught there, and I don't know how in the world he even afforded to send us there, but we went to this private school, my dad was the Bible teacher, and I had some really good friends, and soccer was a big deal at the school that we went to. That was unusual for me, especially moving we moved from Iowa to Delaware at that point, and it was like, man, I thought football was like America's sport. In that little area of Delaware, it was soccer, and I was like, who plays soccer? Well, soccer was a big deal, so much so that we had some people in our school who, their dad flew some individuals from overseas, they were from Poland, had them live in one of his properties, one of his homes, so that daily his kids would be taught by this individual how to play soccer from the time they were really young. So paid this guy a full-time salary, gave him a house to live in, just so he would teach his kids soccer. In fact, he even flew the guy, that coach's dad, out to live with them in order to make life easier for that guy so that he could teach his kids soccer. And we're like, that's crazy. Well, even in my own life with my dad as a pastor, and I do believe my parents did a great job despite decisions I made. I remember in 6th grade when I lived in Iowa that on the way home from school, because we would walk, you could actually walk to and from school back then, I had music lessons and I had to take piano. And so after school, on my way home, I would have to stop at this lady's house, and for 2 hours a day, I had to do piano lessons. And boy, did I despise that every single day. Especially a kid, you're just in school all day. Last thing I want to do is play the piano. But I can't even tell you, I don't know, somebody might be able to do the quick math, I didn't think to, of how many hours that was in 1 year to learn the piano, and guess what? I can't play one key. I know nothing about music whatsoever, and yet, as a kid, I was forced to learn percussion, and I was forced to learn piano. We do that with a lot of people. Sometimes we find out in school our kids aren't doing well, and so we hire a tutor. And we have this tutor meet with our child individually and consistently. And yet, how many of you have ever, once in your life, had somebody do that for you spiritually? How many of you have ever put that much emphasis on your spiritual growth that you have somebody that you meet with daily or weekly or monthly to help you grow in the Lord and understand more about His Word and how to live, who to emulate? Personally, I have found I could count it on one hand how many people I've met in my Christian life that actually have had those types of individuals. And why is that? Because we are so self-centered. And even as Christians, it is not abnormal to be like, yeah, not only is my kid missing church because of sports, every day after school he goes out and he plays sports, and the coach is teaching him for hours a day how to play a sport. And again, my question is, how many hours per day are we teaching our children how to follow the Lord and how to love the Lord and things of the Bible? Because my guess would be the answer would be 0. 0 hours per day. So why? Why is it? How have we been so bamboozled? How have we been so tricked into thinking that that's okay, that that's what we were designed for? It's that geocentric viewpoint of, well, our viewpoints matter. Our presuppositions are always inerrant. They're perfect. They're infallible. And life is all about what I can get out of it, not what have I been created to do. So again, in a spiritual sense, it is incredibly difficult to find anybody who says, I just want to focus on what Christ has for me. And today, the focus that I want to put on is, do you have others leading you in that direction, and how do you find them? So that's what we're going to dive into today, because I believe that's what Paul is focusing on here. And there are 3 individuals that we have here, but before that, I want to start with this. If you want to put Christ at the center of your life, you obviously have to make that your goal, your destination. Well, that's obvious. I actually believe that most people don't even start there with having a destination. Hebrews 12, 1-3 says this: Therefore, since we have so great a cloud of witnesses surrounding us, let us also lay aside every encumbrance and the sin which so easily entangles us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down on the right hand of the throne of God. For consider him who has endured such hostility by sinners against himself, so that you may not grow weary and lose heart. Again, this may seem like a simple step, but it's really not one. You have to fix your eyes on Jesus and run the race towards him. You have to actively, intentionally, daily determine that your goal in life is to serve Christ, that your end goal is to be conformed to Christ, to live the way that Christ lived, to serve God the way that Christ did in his earthly ministry. The destination, again, must be Christ. However, for every destination, you have to make decisions. And I'll give you an example. Just last night, it's great when God allows these life examples to be very good analogies on a Sunday morning. My wife and I went to drop Benaiah off yesterday at a friend's house. And Sarah had a long conversation with the parents last time, so much so I almost called the cops because they're like 10 minutes away, and it was like 2.5 hours, and I'm like, where's my wife? But she had a great conversation. She's like, you've got to meet these people. They're really nice. They're great to talk to. And so went over last night to meet with them. Well, as soon as we left the house, I thought she had said, which I still think that's what you said, but I thought she had said, they're by Daniel Boone. And I assumed Daniel Boone Homestead. And so I'm driving, and it was a good bit in the drive, and she's like, where are you going? And I'm like, to Daniel Boone Homestead. She's like, no, Daniel Boone High School. And I'm like, well, why didn't you say that? She's like, I did. Okay. So, I thought you were in nursery today. No, I'm kidding. Story would go so much better. No, here's the thing, right? So then she says, no, It's at Daniel Boone High School. They live across the street from Daniel Boone High School. And I know that's what you said too. So I'm driving, and I drive right past the high school, and she's like, no, you're supposed to turn back there. And I'm like, what? So I pull off real quick into like this dirt road thing and turn back around. And finally, she puts it in the GPS thing so I know within the development where to turn. Well, there were these assumptions as we were going that, hey, because I know the destination or because I've heard a couple things, like I know where I'm going. However, knowing the destination, again, does not mean you're going to get there, because assumptions, presuppositions, wrong turns, all kinds of stuff can drastically change the way in which you get to that destination. And so saying I want to live like Christ doesn't mean you're going to live like Christ. Again, I have found that it's very easy as a Christian to say yes, or sing songs where I give you my all, God, I love you more than anything, and yet day to day, I believe we find that to be incredibly, incredibly challenging. And I think one of the main portions of the challenge of that is, of course, I mentioned this many times, the absence of daily time with God. People don't spend time in his word or pray, but I've emphasized that many times, and that's really not the emphasis here in this section. It's having other believers in your life that help you reach that point. Others that encourage you, others that are in the car with you that say, no, you're going the wrong way. You've made a wrong turn. Though just like us as husband and wife in a very small thing, as soon as somebody says that, what's the initial response? Well, that's not what you said. It's defensive, right? Like, nothing's even harmed yet. And it's like, why didn't you say this earlier? Well, we can still make a turn and make it there in the exact amount of time. But because somebody called me out, I'm upset about it. And again, that tends to be the way that we treat other Christians. Why? Because we love our self-interest. We love to live for ourselves. I see it so clearly in my children. My children are normal human beings unless they play a video game or they're watching a movie or something. And then as soon as you ask them to stop doing that and do something else, they turn into a complete monster. Why? Because they want things their way, and you're asking them to do something different. And we are the exact same way as adults. God calls us to do something else, and we're like, no way, this is my life. And we may not directly say that to God, but our actions completely live that way, in that we do things for ourselves. So again, every decision matters, and so I couldn't just pass by that, and I want to initially start with how our decisions matter on a daily basis. Again, you need to spend time in God's word, or you will make assumptions. You'll do exactly what I did last night. You will make assumptions as to where you're going and how you're best to get there. And you're going to find that you're going in a completely wrong direction. Just some very practical verses in the Bible that help you in your daily decisions. Romans 12, 1 through 2. I urge you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies a living and holy sacrifice acceptable to God, which is your spiritual service of worship. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what the will of God is, that which is good and acceptable and perfect. How are you going to get a renewed mind if you don't get in God's word? You can't. This is what you need to, you need the mirror of God's word to recognize the way that you think and the faulty error. We needed a GPS to tell me I'm going the wrong way. And oftentimes God's word is infinitely greater than a GPS, but it is like that. When you open it and start reading it, you will so clearly see how you're headed the wrong direction. But before that, you were completely confident that you were already headed the right direction. You need God's word to renew your mind, and oftentimes it is truly that simple. Open the Bible and get in God's word daily. Matthew 6:33, but seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Of course, before that, Jesus is talking about all these earthly things. However, I have yet to meet a single human being in my entire American Christian life that has not at some point had those two drastically flipped. That they seek first the things of this world. They seek first the comforts, the money, the promotions, the house, the clothes, the food, whatever it is. They seek that first and then God after. And yet in this section, God says, Jesus is specifically saying, seek first his kingdom and his righteousness. And all these other things, all these insignificant things will be added unto you. If he took care of the sparrows, of course he's going to take care of you. Luke 9:23, again, these are daily things. And he was saying to them all, Jesus speaking to his disciples, if anyone wishes to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. Daily. You can't just say at one point, I'm going this way. I'm going this direction. Destination takes decisions, and decisions are daily. The smallest little decisions completely change your destination. Just like yesterday, we took a lot of different turns. Did we get there? Yes, but we had a much, much more direct route. We had a much better way to get there. We made the wrong decisions. Psalm 37, 1 through 8, again, it's just illuminating how simple it is to get in God's word and how daily practical it is. Psalm 37, 1 through 8. Do not fret because of evildoers. How many of us have spent time on that? Be not envious toward wrongdoers. How many people have done that? I mean, who here watches things on the news and it's like these billionaires or millionaires and you're like, man, what it would be like to have that much money. Like, yeah, they're on the screen because they're getting arrested. But we're like, man, it would probably be great to have their life. Don't we do that? And that's the way we're headed. Whether we know it, our heart is getting pulled towards those things. And if I open up God's word and start reading, do not be envious toward wrongdoers. Yeah, you know what? My heart kind of is getting drawn that way. That's foolish. What am I even doing? For they will wither quickly like the grass and fade like the green herb. Trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and cultivate faithfulness. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Again, people love the second half of that verse. He'll give you the desires of your heart. What's the first half? What's the condition? Delight yourself in the Lord. And of course, if you delight yourself in the Lord, then guess what? Your heart aligns with his. It changes. Your desires change. Commit your way to the Lord. Trust also in him, and he will do it. And he will bring forth your righteousness as the light and your judgment as the noonday. Rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. Do not fret because of him who prospers in his way, because of the man who carries out wicked schemes. Cease from anger and forsake wrath. Do not fret. It leads only to evil doing. Again, such clear instruction on simple daily living. And yet, how many of us live the opposite of that because we just get back to our own way of doing things, and somebody impeded on our day, on our belief system, on the way we think the country should be run, or our work should be run, or our household, or how people should drive when they're on 222, though let's be honest, that one's at least accurate. Those people are terrible drivers. But we get all upset about those things because people aren't doing it our way, and then if we would spend some time in God's word, it's not about our way. How does God want us to live? So again, those are the simple daily things that we should do. But I'm not really going to put a major emphasis on that, but I didn't want to skip over getting God's word daily. That's going to help you get to your destination. You have to do it. So if you don't do that part, really the rest of this is not going to be as significant. But this is the part. This is the part that I can pretty much guarantee everybody in this room is deeply missing, and that's living out the Christian life with other believers, having true role models. So if you will, at this end, if it went on for infinity, would be the goal. That's to be like Christ, okay? So pretend the line extends infinitely that direction and then comes here to like a normal space. I would say over here is somebody like a Paul, and that's what we're going to talk about, role models, pillars of the faith. There's people like Paul. And I'd say a little bit probably more over here is somebody like a Timothy. And then over where I'm standing, kind of person in the same boat with you is like an Epaphroditus type person. That's the kind of person that you want. And then we're going to close at the end on what about looking behind you and making sure you're actually leading others in that direction as well. And so I'm letting you know that's what we're going to focus on today. The end goal is to be like Christ. But do you have people in your life that are helping lead you that way? Do you have people further down the path that are helping you navigate the obstacles that are sure to come your way? Because again, I would venture to guess that if we raised hands, 99% of you would say you don't have somebody like that in your life. And some of you may say you never once have had anybody like that in your life. And so let's look first at Paul. You do want people like Paul in your life. You want these pillars. And this is how I defined these people, again, as pillars in the faith. They're much further down the road. I would say by default, you don't want them to be a young person, because a young person just does not have much experience. They may be passionate, they may be highly gifted, intelligent, things like that, but typically in a situation like this, you want proven character. You want someone that is much older. I would put pillars of the faith in individuals that, of course, wrote the Bible. And also people that are dead. Because you know what? A dead person's character has pretty much already been proven. Those that are alive can still mess up right at the end, right? Ravi Zacharias was like the perfect example of that. He was what many would call a pillar in the faith, and then find out that he wasn't living that way whatsoever. I would cautiously say you can find these type of people perhaps on YouTube. You can find people like maybe a John MacArthur or a John Piper or David Jeremiah, some people that I know individuals here tend to watch. But these are people that you probably are not going to have too much interaction with. People gleaned from Paul, and yet of the churches that Paul wrote to and the churches that Paul ministered at, I don't think they got too much one-on-one time with Paul. So a pillar of the faith is one of those people that you find that it's like, man, almost every time I pick up a book, for me, it's like a John Owen or a J.C. Ryle. There's some of those guys that died, some of those in that example, 400 years ago, 200 years ago. I pick up and I read, and I can still glean from them, but can I have a conversation with John Owen or J.C. Ryle? No, I cannot, but there is still a lot to be learned from them, the way that they lived. And that's Paul. He writes here in 1 Corinthians 4:14 through 17. These are the people you want to imitate. Paul writes to the Corinthian church, I do not write these things to shame you, but to admonish you as my beloved children. It's another thing you should look for in a role model. They're willing to admonish you. For if you were to have countless tutors in Christ, yet you would not have many fathers, for in Christ Jesus I became your father through the gospel. I exhort you, therefore, be imitators of me. It's a bold statement. For this reason I have sent to you Timothy, who is my beloved and faithful child in the Lord, and he will remind you of my ways which are in Christ, just as I teach everywhere in every church. So again, we see here the respect that Paul had for Timothy, and he said, I'm going to send you Timothy to help you grow in these ways, but Timothy really is coming to remind you how I live, and that's how you should live too. And it is important to dive into these characters, these individuals that have lived before you, that ran the race, that fought the fight, and finished well. Look at the way that they lived. Emulate them. Instead of, you talk to pretty much any kid these days, you know what they want to do when they grow up? Most of them want to make a profession being a YouTuber. They want to make videos and make hundreds of millions of dollars making YouTube videos, right? Well, guess who those kids want to grow up and be like? The ones that they're watching on the screen, these unproven individuals that are typically around their age, that are obsessed with video games and other things like that. That's who they want to be like. We should give them better role models, and there are lots of dead heroes in the faith that we can glean from. Pick up a book, read a book, read God's word. You will find people like Paul. Again, Paul says in 1 Corinthians 11:1, be imitators of me, just as what? I also am of Christ. Paul says, I follow Christ. Again, there's a Hebrew word called talmudim. I think we've said this before. It actually means disciple. In fact, it means disciple in the point of having dust kicked up on you. You're following so closely behind the individual that as they walk, dust is being kicked up on you. That's how close you should be to Christ. That's how close you should be to the discipler. You're imitating them in such a way that you're getting dust kicked up on you. Again, you're looking for someone that is able to say that with a clean conscience, imitate me as I imitate Christ. Paul says again in Romans 9:1 through 3, this kind of individual you're looking for, okay? This is the kind of proven character you want. Paul says, I am telling the truth in Christ, I am not lying. My conscience bearing me witness in the Holy Spirit that I have great sorrow and unceasing grief in my heart. For I could wish that I myself were accursed, separated from Christ, for the sake of my brethren, my kinsmen, according to the flesh. Paul is saying, I'm willing to go to hell. If it were an option, I'd be willing to go to hell so that others would come to Christ. You want somebody with that kind of deep passion for the Lord and for his brothers and sisters, that he's willing to do anything to see God glorified in their life and that they would come to the true saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. You want people who live that kind of life. They talk that way and they live that way. But again, oftentimes it's going to be hard to find a Paul-type individual outside of those that have already passed. And you're probably never going to find that in somebody that's under the age of like 60 or 70. They've reached a point in their life where they've tested out many other directions and they have truly come to the point of saying, there is nothing but Christ. I only want to follow Christ. And I can honestly say in my entire life, and I have run in many deep Christian circles, I only can think of one person in my entire life that I have known like that. And man, you wanted to sit around the dude all day long because you just felt Jesus Christ working through him. And if he were alive today, I mean, what greater honor could you have than somebody says something like that about you? Wouldn't you like that to be said at your funeral? It's possible. But do you have people like that leading you? Next we see is Timothy. So Timothy, I would say, is the kind of person that you want who is further down the road than you. However, they're much more accessible. I would say, though this is often not the case, that should always be a parent at the very least. Your mother or father, though many of us perhaps did not have a mother and father like that, we should always have a mother and father that is further down the road and is teaching us and helping us to grow. And even as adults, that you have access to that individual that can help you grow. But outside of that, I would say this is typically where you're going to look for like a pastor, an elder, an individual that you can see the way that they live their life, but you really don't interact with them daily. But you have the opportunity to interact with them and glean from them. This is somebody who is very active and respected in their proper Christian context. Again, look at Timothy. He is often sent or lifted up by Paul. We just read that in 1 Corinthians. We also read that in Philippians. Look how he thinks of Timothy, for I have no one else. Listen, this is nearing the end of Paul's life. And you would think Paul, after that many years of ministry, would be able to rattle off hundreds of names of people that are deeply serving the Lord. He says, for I have no one else of kindred spirit who will genuinely be concerned for your welfare, for they all seek after their own interest, not those of Christ Jesus. But he has seen Timothy. He has found Timothy to be hard at work. If you look at Timothy throughout the Bible, we see that at the very least he served in Berea, he served in Corinth, he served in Athens, Thessalonica, Rome, Jerusalem. He's a co-signer with Paul in many of the letters that are written in the New Testament. It says Paul and Timothy. So Timothy was active in the Lord. He was a trusted co-laborer in Christ. And he's one that Paul taught directly. And we can learn so much from what Paul taught Timothy. How? Well, we have letters in the Bible that Paul wrote directly to Timothy. And so I want to show you a couple of them and what we can glean from it. Again, you want a Paul in your life, but you want a Timothy as well. Paul writes to Timothy in 1 Timothy 3:14 through 15. He says, I am writing these things to you, hoping to come to you before long. But in case I am delayed, I write so that you may know how one ought to conduct himself in the household of God. I'm going to focus on specific things here, but Paul is saying, I'm writing you these letters so that you know how to conduct yourself. So if you want to know how you're supposed to conduct yourself, read 1st and 2nd Thessalonians. It's a very direct thing. Paul's saying this is how you should conduct yourself. But that's somebody who loves you in the Lord. They tell you, listen, this is how you're supposed to conduct yourself, whether it's what you want to hear or not. They tell you this is what God requires of you. 1 Timothy 4:12 through 16. Again, we see in Timothy, you want this. You want someone who promotes and lives out God's word above all else. That they value God's word above all else. They treasure God's word above all else. I'll tell you what, if you want to find a Timothy in your life, there's a very simple way to do this. And it may be a little bit more complicated for those that truly read their Bible on their phone. I don't know how accurate that is. I feel like if you're reading your Bible on your phone daily, you're probably distracted with a million other things. But you want to find a good Timothy, you want to find somebody that loves the Lord, honestly, look at their Bible. Just look at their Bible. Are the edges falling apart? Are the pages ripped? Jordan's downstairs. I'll tell you what. Go look at Jordan's Bible. It is so thick because of how worn the pages are from the sweat from his fingers. Have expanded the pages. Look for people, and I'm saying this because, hey, Paul said imitate me, right? I'll tell you what. My Bible, from the time I've had it, I won't put it on the ground. Like, I'll put a piece of paper under it to make sure it doesn't touch the ground. Like, I carefully turn each page to make sure that I don't rip it. If I'm highlighting it, I dab it with paper towel after to make sure that it doesn't bleed through to the next page. Like, I buy the highlighters that won't ruin the Bible. It is just a book. It's not magical, but the content is so valuable to me. Again, I think I said this before. Probably the most unchristian thought I've ever had in my life, believe it or not, was when I had my Bible on the ground next to, it was on a piece of paper, it was on the ground, and somebody was walking through doing communion, and they stepped on my Bible. And they ripped the back of it, like straight off. I found punching somebody during communion is not a good thing, so I didn't do it. But you want to know if somebody is a Timothy and somebody that you want to follow, watch their life, and honestly, look at their Bible. Talk to them about the Bible. Are they regurgitating Christian sayings, these cliches, the Christianese? Are they quoting the latest, greatest song? Or do they know God's word? You want to find Timothy's. 2 Timothy 4, 9 through 13. You want someone loyal. You want someone who is like Timothy is to Paul, because this is literally the last thing that Paul wrote. This is right before Paul knows he's going to die. And Paul sends this letter to Timothy and says, make every effort to come to me soon. For Demas, having loved this present world, has deserted me and gone to Thessalonica. Crescens has gone to Galatia, Titus to Dalmatia. Only Luke is with me. Pick up Mark and bring him with you, for he is useful to me for service. But Tychicus I have sent to Ephesus. When you come, bring the cloak which I left at Troas with Carpus, and the books, especially the parchments. This is what I love about Paul and Timothy's relationship. Paul's about to die, and he's writing to Timothy, and he's saying, please come see me before you die. I want to see you before I die. And then he says, it's so human, right? He says, bring my cloak. He doesn't have to specify, because Timothy knows which cloak. And he says, bring my books, the parchments, especially the parchments. And Timothy will know exactly how much they mean to him. I used to have an individual in my life named Kevin Scott. He's currently a church planner up in Boston. When I first moved out to California, Kevin was absolutely my mentor. And me and Kevin used to sit in his office at church. And man, we would dive so deep into God's word. We would spend hours upon hours. Like the time would just fly as we're discussing Greek sentence structure and all these different things. But at those moments, his wife knew at any given time, if she were to talk to me or Kevin about anything that we talked about, both of us were so familiar with it that it was like talking to the other person. Any discussion that we had, because we were so deep in God's word, and that's the kind of relationship that Paul and Timothy had. Do you have somebody like that if you were near the end of your life, you would say, hey, get those things of value to me, and they know exactly what you're talking about? Somebody that's loyal, that when Paul says, I'm about to die, I want you to come to me, they come. You want those types of individuals. But let me also give a word of caution here. Never assume someone else knows what you're going through. Timothy did not know precisely Paul's stage of life at this point. Paul had to inform him. And a lot of hurt happens in the church because people assume that the church or others should know what they're going through. And the reality is we oftentimes have no clue because people don't let us in. You've got to let people in. You've got to tell people. If you want people to be loyal, you've got to trust them. You've got to let them into your world as well. So again, you want a Paul, you want a Timothy, and I also believe that you want in your life an Epaphroditus, and Epaphroditus is somebody in the boat with you. Somebody in the trenches with you. They may be just slightly further down the road or slightly behind you, but they really understand your life, and in best case scenario, you interact with them daily. Now, for those that are married, ideally, this should be your spouse. Your spouse should be in the boat with you. And men, if you're married, according to the Bible, you should be the one at the helm of that boat. Boat's just going to spin in circles if somebody's not directing it. And men, you should be directing it, but you should be rowing at the same time, the same direction. My wife and I, if anybody's ever seen the movie The Notebook, was filmed literally right next to where we used to live in South Carolina. And we're like, oh, it'd be cool to like go out on the boat and row where there's like all these like geese and all this stuff and huge gators. And so me and my wife went out there and we rowed about 10 feet, and both of us were rowing differently, and it was exhausting with both of us rowing different directions, and we're like going in circles. There's other people trying to like go further, and we looked at how far the like loop is, and we're like, let's just row back to the deck because we're not going to get on the same page here. We're not going to be able to go. If you want somebody on the same page, you want somebody in the boat with you. Again, this should be your spouse. It can be a pastor, though they're probably a little bit busier, or an elder. That's probably more your Timothy. You want brothers and sisters in Christ. You want co-laborers. Do you have people in your life that interact with you pretty consistently, if not daily, to encourage you in God's word, to just have simple conversations about the Lord? Because many times people are like, my life is so miserable, and I'm like, who are you following? Because it's almost always no one. Who's your like, not idol in a bad way, but who's a role model? Who's somebody you hope to be like? Who are you reading? I mean, people ask me that often. Who's the last guy you read? I'm currently reading The Duty of a Pastor by John Owen. Like, I glean a lot from John Owen. There are those guys that I would like to one day be like those individuals. I would like to serve the Lord like those guys did. So I know I want to be like that. Do you have a Timothy? Do you have somebody that you can call that really does know God's word, and they want to help you understand God's word and go deeper? And especially, do you have somebody that you even interact with on a daily basis, including your spouse, that you even talk about the Lord with whatsoever? Because if you feel miserable, if you feel alone, if you feel like you're just spinning your wheels like a hamster, you're not going any direction, I can pretty much guarantee you that's one of the reasons why. You have no one leading you. And oftentimes we sit around, woe is me, nobody's leading me, when we haven't done anything to be led. We haven't asked anybody to lead us. I really want every person here, and I can't take out my heart and put it in yours, right? But to truly seek Christ is the most freeing thing any human being can ever experience. And we read that in the Bible, but can you say that experientially? Have you truly felt that freedom? Because I'm telling you, when you wake up in the morning and you're like, God, what do you have for me today? It's exciting. It's fun. Again, even the bad things that come along, you say, this is an opportunity. But when it's self-interest, everything that comes along is, that just messed up my plans, my day, my agenda. But when you wake up, God, what do you have for me? Everything is like, there's a new challenge. God, how are you going to grow me through this? How do I get to serve you in this way? Oh, you have me meet a new person? Why did you have me meet the new person? Why is this conversation happening? Why is this struggle happening? Man, when your destination, your goal is to seek Christ's interests, it is a freeing and exciting life. And I don't think I need to focus on the emptiness of self-interest, especially on the back end of COVID. How many of y'all were like locked in for like a week or two, and after that you're like, I'm so tired of diving into things I thought I needed to catch up on. I'm so tired of spending time in front of the TV or doing whatever the thing is that you thought, that hobby that you so desperately needed to throw yourself back into, and you did, and you found it was so empty. Self-interests are always so empty, and we trick ourselves into, well, I'll just do another new self-interest. That one won't be as empty, and we find it to be empty as well. Do you feel a loss for not having a role model in Christ? Do you actually have the security and comfort of having others beside you? How about the joy of being a role model? We're getting near the end here. But before I do close, I want to speak quickly on how you find these individuals and what I've personally experienced in the local church. Again, many people leave the local church or complain about the local church because they say, no one cared about me, no one got to know me. Pastor Bill, you're talking about that, but you're not being that for me, or nobody else is being that for me. No one ever paid me any mind or did anything for me. That may be the case. Again, I'm not saying that it's not. But in my experience, oftentimes the reason you feel that way towards a local church is because you've done absolutely nothing to get known in that local church. You don't serve. You show up late and you leave early. You don't do anything. And we're very quick to critique. And I'm telling you how I know that so well because I've been that guy. Probably about 8 years ago now, 9 years maybe, my wife and I lived on a BFC campus. We literally, our house was on the campus of the church. And we would show up. I worked shift work for the police department at that time, and so 5 out of every 8 weeks on Sunday I was working anyways. I couldn't go to church. And so I was rarely there, but very well known there. My parents worked with one of the pastors, and at least 8 or 10 times my wife and I showed up, and that same pastor, every time, he was the assistant pastor, would be like, oh, it's nice of you to visit. What's your name? And we're like, same name it was last week, dude. And so we're like, I can't believe how disinterested these people are in us. And we got into this self-pity like, man, this church is the worst. They don't care about us. They do nothing for us. We've had babies since living here. Nobody's delivered a single meal. Nobody's anything. And you know what the realization was when we finally moved out of there? I never told anybody we were having a baby. I never introduced myself to anybody. I never volunteered to do squat there. Instead, I just complained about them all day long. Man, they drive by our house every day on their way into church, and they never even do anything for us. They don't even know we exist. But it's so easy for me to be like, them. And I'm telling you right now, I have heard that so much in my life. The church hasn't done this, the church haven't done that. But simply, are you involved? Because if you really want to find individuals, this is how you find these types of individuals. You get involved. Should you pray? Yes. Okay, let's not remove the spiritual aspect, but I'm talking genuine prayer, which again I find is oftentimes lacking. Prayer is typically the Christian substitute for work. God, I really want you to have somebody help me grow in Christ. I'm not going to show up to the food pantry, a small group, Sunday school, Sunday night church, or any of the other options there. But God, please send me somebody that will help me grow. Okay. Listen, genuinely, heartfelt, on your knees, humbly before the Lord God, I'm crying out to you. I need somebody to help me grow closer to you. Yeah, I believe he'll provide that, absolutely. But even as you do that, get involved. How did Paul and Timothy hit it off on a mission trip? How did Paul and Epaphroditus get to know each other? Because Epaphroditus went to Paul when he was in prison and made a delivery to him and said, I'm here to serve you. I'm here to help you. They got to know each other through service. And I mean that seriously. Listen, life will not change when you're a spectator. Like, if we call the life game a life, most individuals I've met are the ones in the stands, and they are critiquing and yelling at the coach and the players all the time. Why don't you do this? Man, if I was down there, I did it. Get down there. Get in the game. You want people to coach you. You want to learn how to serve the Lord better, how to stop being miserable all the time, depressed, angry, frustrated. Get in the game. Get around other believers. Serve. Do what you were created to do. Worship God. Stop worshiping self. That's one of the greatest ways. However, again, let me be very clear. I understand how exceptionally hard that is and why when Paul writes those that are still serving with him, he's able to do it in a sentence or two. He's able to name on one hand how many people are still willing to serve. Because it's hard. and you do have to pick up your cross daily. And you are going to find people that stab you in the back and stab you in the chest and stab you everywhere else. But if you're doing it for the Lord, you're going to get back up and you're going to continue on. And especially if you have role models, because they're going to turn around and pick you back up and say, hey, man, I've been there. Let's move on. This is a worthwhile fight. This is a worthwhile journey. But you need people in your life to do that. We cannot do this alone. Matthew 9:35 through 38. And Jesus was going about all the cities and the villages, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom and healing every kind of disease and every kind of sickness. And seeing the multitudes, he felt compassion for them because they were distressed and downcast like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Therefore, beseech the Lord of the harvest to send out workers into his harvest. I have never found the lack of Christians shouting how much the world needs Christians. But man, I have found a lack of Christians willing to go out and live like Christians. Christians are great at standing at the top of the hill and saying, wow, look at that crop. Look how awful that world is and how desperately they need Christ. I sure hope somebody goes shares with them. Hey, pastor, I'm bringing somebody to church. Like, I've been working with them for years. You got to talk to them about Christ. Huh? You've known them for years? You're buddies with them? Why do you need me to talk to them about Christ? You talk to them about Christ. It's really weird when a stranger that they just met for the first time is like, hey, man, you going to heaven or hell? Love people enough to do that. The harvest, there's more than enough work. But we all know there are not enough workers, and I mean in the most tangible ways. It's why if I look back right now, I don't see Jordan or Becky in here. Why? Because they're down in Sunday school because we don't have enough Sunday school teachers. Again, why do we have problems with youth or women's ministry, men's ministry? Why is the food pantry short on certain days? Why are all of those things happen? Because everybody assumes everybody else is doing the work. And then we also sit at home and one, critique the church, and then two, be like, how come I'm not Christ-like? Because you're not around others that are Christ-like. We need those role models in our life. So we're going to close with very practical application today. Listen, like a budget or a daily routine that many people have, they get up at a certain time, they make coffee, maybe you work out, whatever it may be. We have these daily routines. Are they simply your own interests or are they Christ's? Again, in a very practical way, are you having a daily devotion? Are you part of a small group? Do you make church a priority, prayer, study time? Do you read books from other Christians? Do you listen to sermons from other preachers? Do you join a disciple group? There is an endless list of ways in which you can practically grow. Do we do those things? Number two, I would say pray and seek people like Paul, Timothy, and Epaphroditus. And you're going to find those people by serving, by getting involved. And finally, lead others intentionally. Because you will find there is such a great joy when you are being discipled by someone else to turn around and disciple somebody else. Because there's always somebody further behind in your Christian walk. And there's always somebody further ahead. And so I pray that, again, you see the practicality of Paul's message here as he talks about Timothy and Epaphroditus. If you can't think of anybody like that in your life right now, then obviously you don't have them. And you are desperately missing out. And I pray that you would work towards finding somebody like that and pray that God would provide that for you. So let's close in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, God, we so desperately need help in this life, Lord. Again, Lord, for Adam, it is not good for man to be alone. God, you have given us your body of believers, the local church, God, that are supposed to be like-minded individuals. Lord, some in your local body are very mature. They love you, they seek you, they serve you. And Lord, we have great examples of that here, and I pray that others would look to them, engage with them intentionally, to grow closer to you and live like you. Lord, I pray that we would be in the boat with other individuals, that we would be in the trenches, that we wouldn't be on the sidelines. God, I just pray for each heart in this room that they would see the significance of having disciplers and those to disciple, role models that seek you first. Lord, may we imitate them and intentionally imitate them so that we can be more like your Son. In Jesus' name, amen.
As we respond to the message, let's stand if we're able and sing Here I Am to Worship.
Light of the world, you step down into darkness. Open my eyes, let me see beauty that made this heart adore you. Hope of a life spent with you.
So here I am.
So here I am to worship, here I am to bow down, here I am to say that you're my God. You're altogether lovely, altogether worthy, altogether wonderful to me. King of all days, oh so highly exalted, glorious in heaven above. Humbly you came to the earth you created, all for love's sake became poor. So here I am to worship, here I am to bow down, here I am to say that you're my God. You're altogether lovely, altogether worthy, altogether wonderful to me. I'll never know how much it costs to see my sin upon that cross. I'll never know how much it costs to see my sin upon that cross. Sing that out. I'll never know how much it costs to see my sin upon that cross. I'll never know how much it costs to see my sin upon that cross. Here I am to worship, here I am to bow down, here I am to say that you're my God. You're altogether lovely, altogether worthy, altogether wonderful to me. So here I am, so here I am to worship, here I am to bow down, here I am to say that you're my God. You're altogether lovely, altogether worthy, altogether wonderful to me. One last time, so here I am to worship, here I am to bow down, here I am to say that you're my God. You're altogether lovely, altogether worthy, altogether wonderful to me.
Again, very quickly, I mean, I can use these individuals as an example. I can pretty much guarantee nobody up here decided to play an instrument and didn't look to somebody else to help them grow in that. I know with YouTube these days, man, your car doesn't work, your dishwasher doesn't work, your sink, something like that, right? We hop on YouTube and somebody teaches us how to do it. We sit there and we watch and we're willing to put that time in, and yet when our marriage starts to fall apart, we're addicted to sin. We're finding our life is full of depression or hate or anger. We don't get into God's word and we don't reach out to other brothers and sisters. Man, I pray that today you are encouraged to do that you find role models in Christ. If you need to know like pillars of the faith, things like that, boy, email me or call. I'll give you a list of 50 people immediately of who you should go out and buy and read and dive into and all of that. And never substitute God's word for those things. But also, you're going to find individuals like a Timothy or such that maybe it doesn't work out. Maybe the personality doesn't work out, or you don't have time, they don't have time. Well, adjust. Pray for wisdom and discernment in that. But make it a priority. I guarantee that's something that's been missing in your life. And I pray that that changes. So let's close with the Aaronic blessing. Lord, bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance on you and give you peace. You are dismissed.